Thank you everyone for coming. I appreciate you taking the time on an evening to spend to learn about transforming Luxembourg. On the digital side, we're going to be touching all sorts of different areas. Let's start with this. Great athletes, great musicians, people who do great things understand one fundamental belief in themselves is that if they don't get advice from others, they can never reach their highest potential. If you were one of the best violinists in the world, number one, and you were working with your coach or your instructor and they said, move your finger just a quarter of a centimeter, it would change everything. You'd listen. If you were an athlete and they said, move your hip a little bit over that no one else can see, you're going to run faster, you're going to run more efficient. You would try it. I think Luxembourg has done amazing things so far, but at this point we have to start looking, or I believe we have to start looking in a completely different way, but yet in the same direction. Now what I mean by that is, I think you're doing a fantastic job, and if I make a suggestion today, I don't want you to take it as a negative on the performance you've done. The best analogy that I use consistently is this. If you took a laser beam and pointed it to the moon, and you moved it a centimeter left or right, you'd miss the moon. It doesn't matter if it's profit, non-profit, government, military, education. If you're off by a little bit, you won't win. So let's give you a short example of how powerful this is. Received a phone call to work with the College Bookstore Association. College bookstore associations were tasked with increasing their profitability throughout their organizations, and they approximately make between $2 to $50 million a year. And they were struggling because a book only has between 5 to 15% profit. But when you sell a t-shirt or a mug or another piece of memorabilia, you can get 100% markup. So these organizations, however, were challenged. They were challenged because they could buy online, they could buy discounted books. Students were finding alternatives in order to be able to improve their capabilities. And during a lot of the interviews I was doing, I started to hear a theme. They had to increase their performance. They had to get higher profitability. They were tasked with it. And at one point, something snapped inside of me. And it was this. I said to myself, what was the original intention of a bookstore? Think about that for a minute. What was the original intention of a bookstore? Probably the first thought is, well, so that teachers and students can get books. It wasn't exactly that. The original bookstores were created so that the professor could spend more time on teaching the material and have someone else find the resources, pull the books together, unpack them so the students can perform better. It was about increasing the performance of the student and the teacher, not about selling books. But something got screwed up in the middle. Somebody started saying, well, they have to make profit out of this now. If we have this unit, well, they should sell a mug, but not increase the performance. And then I realized they were missing it by a hair. What was happening was they were focused so much on making profits that they forgot the original intention. But let's do a little math. How many pens and mugs and t-shirts could you make to make an additional $500,000 US or euros? But what if you had, say, a biology department? They're number 36 in the world, and the bookstore could help improve getting materials to students, help the professor find new ways of teaching content. And in doing so, it improves the performance of the department and the students. They get grants, they get loans, and they move from number 30-ish to number 15 in the world. They get an additional 30 students at 30,000 euros, that's $1.5 million. And if they did that across the entire university, they can make a fortune, but it won't show up on their numbers in terms of profitability, because the bookstore's intention is to make a profit. If you ask great questions, you have the chance of making or creating great answers. But if you ask poor questions, you're going to end up with poor answers almost every time. And this is where Luxembourg has a challenge. I've talked to a lot of people, I'll give you some of those examples, but I got to a point where I'm not going to go over the tool redefining, but there's a tool on how to be able to ask unbelievable questions. It took 3 years to develop. And one of the components of asking great questions, and I'm not going to go over them, is that if you have your solution built into your question, then you start to develop the wrong content. Meaning, if you put the word capital into your answer, your question, well, how do we raise more capital? You're not solving the challenge because you might not need capital. But the question often has the answer in it. And the answer to digitalization might be somewhat to that scope. I did read the report from Jeremy Rifkin, and Jeremy is a brilliant man. He has done amazing things. I've read his books. But at the same time, when I started to read what he had delivered, I had a few challenges. One of them comes from my amazing wife. She taught me that when categories don't line up, you have an issue, especially when writing. And these categories, education, transportation, smart cities, I'm assuming you've all possibly seen something such as Sesame Street growing up. One of these things is not like the other. Can you tell which one? My wife taught me that when you put the categories that don't match, you end up solving wrong challenges. And in the case of trying to solve everything, which I think the report did, you might be solving nothing. And you might be off from hitting the moon. Granted, looking to the future, there are going to be challenges with energy. You've done a phenomenal job of adding data centers and cable networks and dropped the cost of being able to move data to be one of the finest in all of Europe. I also know that the banking industry, the fintech industry is located here, hedge funds, because there's possibilities. And I also do know that there's a huge transportation challenge here in terms of getting people commuting from other countries in and out. This is not a time to go over proving that I know that. It's about showing you some different solutions. So I gave you a quick hit on redefining, but now I'm going to go a little bit deeper with you. I'm going to look at understanding the future and where we're headed, and secondly, looking at desired outcomes. So let's say I was to hand you right now, each one of you, I walked up and I had some drugs in my hand, antibiotics. And I said to you, take one. Would you take it? Why not? You don't want it? You might even say, why is he offering this to me? Maybe, do I look bad? Do I look sick? Why is he pushing drugs on me? I don't connect it. Well, to some degree, when I was asking individuals doing the research for this, why digitalization, I didn't get great answers. I was asking, here's the drug, why don't you take it? So think for a moment, what is digitalization? We're looking to digitalize the entire country, so you should all know. You should actually all have the same exact answer for what digitalization is. The application of it could be different, but we should all have the same answer. And by digitalization, it often means, and the word here is very symbolic, it is everything. The integration of everything into everyday life, that we're going to change everything, that we will be a digital society. Something doesn't make sense for me. And in my head, when there's disconnects, I am like a pit bull. I do not let go. I need to find out why someone would bite onto this and then hold it as an entire country as a methodology. So let's take a jump. What is digitalization for? Think about that. What is digitalization for? Is it so that you can get to work faster? Is it so that you can get your health care faster? Is it so you could park your car faster? The intention of digitalization and its purpose doesn't seem to be connected in almost anything that I read from Jeremy Rifkin and almost all the conversations I've had. And it doesn't matter, many of you are in for-profit organizations. These type of questions happen all the time, like the Bookstore. They were searching for profits. What were they being fed? The typical jump for digitalization is the jump to smart cities. Smart cities is improving traffic. Smart cities is improving garbage delivery so that you know when the garbage needs to be picked up. Smart cities is about lampposts and turning on and off lights. Smart cities often are addressing many of the challenges that governance within a community has to address. That's why smart cities have come about. And it's hopefully going to leverage and allow individuals and organizations to be able to thrive by being in a smart city. It covers multiple different disciplines. We've got people all the way through to smart environment. But that also assumes unlimited capital and time. And I don't know of any country in the world, any city in the world, that has unlimited of both. You have to pick the winners. So let's take Barcelona. Unbelievable change that they've made, the transformation they've done. Back in 1860 to 1960, this was a thriving metropolis. This was a powerhouse of an industry. They did phenomenal things, and then what happened was in 1960 to approximately 1990, it fell into disrepair. Barcelona took on the initiative of, let's make this into a smart city. Let's change how we live, change how we work. Let's add the infrastructure and the pieces that would modify how we get along every day and to make the quality of life different. They came up with a plan. It wasn't to digitalize everything. They came up with approximately 122 projects that would focus on few key areas that fit their infrastructure, that fit their needs, their culture, what they perceived to be as their future, and they focused on developing each one of them. But yet I can travel to Berlin. And Berlin right now is a mecca for young kids. Startups and young kids, I might be speaking, I don't know, at Tech Open Air shortly. They want to have youth come in to have a vibrant community, and hopefully these people will stay and build the future of Berlin. But then again, I could probably give you several other cities that are doing this. Malaysia, South Korea, Saudi Arabia. The world is full of people trying to keep up. So by digitalizing Luxembourg, all you're doing is keeping up. Because all over the world, they're trying to digitalize their community. Everywhere you look. You can list the name. How do we improve our performance? Because taking care of garbage collection and lights and streets and car congestion is being faced by all decision makers in multitudes of environments. So if we do what everybody else is doing, aren't we now becoming the same? And there's no competitive advantage for Luxembourg. So let's take a jump. This is a principle that can guide a lot of your decision making. All planning begins with your perception of the future. If you believe tomorrow the world will fall apart, you probably wouldn't be here. If you believe tomorrow would be amazing for you and there's an opportunity that you could take advantage of, you'd plan differently. We all plan based upon our perception of the future. The challenge is we really don't know what the future is bringing us. So let's do a little experiment here. With broad brush, meaning across the room here, I'm going to categorize the people in this room into 3 different categories. You think about where you would fall. The first one is a retro person. A retro person lives in the past, some in the present, and lives some in the future. There's some future. For example, they know what they do next week or next month. But they spend a lot of time talking about yesterday. Where's the data? What have we done? What has happened? What's the history? How did we get here? And this is a great place to be. It's an easy place to be. If you were to go for a family dinner, would you spend a lot of your time talking about what's been going on in the past? Listen to your conversations. You'll find that the majority of time you're talking about what happened yesterday or the day before or the day before that. But there's another group of people who are current-oriented, sometime in the past, some in the future. And the current-oriented person straddles it well. However, current is a really challenging word. So if I said to you that I build a nuclear reactor, and in 2 years we're going to put up a tower, would that be current or future? It's current. Why? It's just 2 years because in the utility business, future is 30 years or 50 years. But when we're talking about the current of an organization, for example, in fintech or in banking, when it comes to the changes that are happening, 5 years in tech businesses is considered future. So it's all relative. Then there's the next person who's future-oriented. This person needs some past, you need some of it. But their conversation is about tomorrow and today. Where are we today? How do we get to tomorrow? These people are excited. They look, they spend a lot of time in the future. There's a real challenge with the future, though. In order to be in the future, you have to constantly be keeping up with the future. It's like climbing a sand dune, and you're climbing, and then you stop, and you'll fall backwards. And then you climb some more, and you fall backwards. If you were to look at where you sit today, where would you put your mark? In your own head, who are you? The majority of people put themselves between the forward and the current oriented. The reality is if you watch them and you talk to them, they'll find out 6 months later they said, yeah, I'm a little bit more retro than I thought. So let's imagine this. You get into a car, and you are most of you able to drive, and you turn on your high beams at night. Why? Why do you turn on your high beams? What would be the purpose of turning on a high beam? Somebody. See longer. Anybody else? This was the smart group, right? The reason you turn on your high beams is to anticipate better. The act of seeing is just the action. It's more data. We do it for anticipation, so at night we can make that turn better. At night, we don't have to slam on the brakes constantly because we can't see far enough into the future. That's the reason we turn on our high beams. It's for the anticipation, not for the seeing. But when you turn on your high beams at night, also what happens is you get this broader view. Why would you want a broader view? You don't want a deer jumping out from the side. Netflix killed Blockbuster from the side. They didn't see it coming. So if you were to get a further view, your ride could be smoother. Everybody can ride with you. And you'll be in more control instead of braking and braking and braking and braking. I was having a conversation with Marco and Kamal from Farvest. And during the conversation, Kamal says to me, well, we all know the future for people is creativity. And my reaction, and Marco goes, I said, no, it's not. And I can prove it to you in 10 minutes. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I can prove it to you in 10 minutes. Artificial intelligence has been sold that it is not that humans should be creative, and if they're creative, they'll have jobs, they have opportunities, and that's where humans fill their void. And that the robotics and all the other technology will only take off the portion, and that's where humans will be. So let me ask you to think once again. What is creativity? Creating something new? That would be creativity? So let's play this out. Let's assume that we're going to play a game. Let's say the game's been around for 2,000 years, and there's someone playing with you, and they come up with moves you've never seen before. I mean, this is a 2,000-year-old, 2,500-year-old game, and someone comes up moves you've never seen. I'm assuming you would say, oh my God, they're incredible, they're a savant. Creative to find new ways to play a game. AlphaGo computer by Google was created to play the game Go. The game Go has more combinations of opportunities to play than the entire number of atoms in the universe. It's not like chess. Chess, you can actually force the algorithms to win the game, but you can't do that in Go. And as they were training Go with machine learning, what happened was that Go started to come up with moves that no one had ever seen before. Oh, no, it's just a computer. When it played the number one in the world, it won 4 out of the 5 games. But what's even more amazing is they developed DeepMind, and DeepMind used artificial intelligence to look at and play and compete against AlphaGo. And within 40 some odd days, it beat AlphaGo 100-0. I would say that's creative. I would say it's so creative that right now, if we took a football game, you probably don't know that you're reading sports reporting that was written by artificial intelligence. They did a test in San Francisco. A friend of mine actually is involved in this company. What they did is they gave a reporter, several reporters an assignment, and then they gave a computer algorithm an assignment. And they said, write about this game. They went out, they talked to people, they watched the game, they watched the clips, and they wrote this story. And it took several hours to create it. And they gave it to the algorithm, but the algorithm did something different. It looked at every single word by taking the wording of every announcer and putting it through the Google sentiment engine, looking at nouns, verbs, and adjectives. Every single word that was played, it can see they were up on their feet, they were sitting down, they were calm, they were upset, they talked about each character. They have the entire history of every single person who played on that field. And every move that's ever been played. They knew the wind that was going and which direction it was and how cloudy it was and it could have got in the sun of the individual. And that wrote that article within minutes. And you couldn't tell the difference. And in many cases, it was better. Would you say that's creative? Doesn't have to take the entire writing industry, but it does. But then again, people would say, yeah, but you may be writing a book. In Japan, a company wrote an algorithm for creating a book, a fiction book, not nonfiction. They wrote everything that they needed to write. The algorithm wrote it. They submitted it to a competition with 1,450 other competitors, and it started winning. The Turing test is when you cannot tell if a human wrote it or a machine. We see this in art. In the Today Explained, Vox, several years ago, hired a company. When you watch videos online, the videos are not being created by video editors. They write a script, they give the script, the algorithm looks at it, and then off of that, it takes the video, adds the words, adds the pieces, and if you watch Vox, those videos are created by an algorithm. And you think there's a human adding a little bit of personal creative touch by turning the angle of the letters. There's no creativity there. There's a computer. And you probably recognize both these characters on the bottom, these actor and actresses, right? They don't exist. An algorithm was told to create people. And they created two people that look so close to being people that we assume that they're people. And today there's a new algorithm that came out that can take a still photograph of the Mona Lisa and make it come alive. It exists today. Humanless companies will exist in the near future where we'll take a car, for example, an Uber-type car, but a car. We'll all invest in it, and the car will be able to have a bank account, go and get its oil changed or its battery changed, change its tires, and no human interaction will be involved. Driverless cars and trucks are going to continue to pervade, and they're out there. We're seeing it. We've seen buses in Shenzhen. I'm from Hong Kong. In Shenzhen and Guangzhou region, there are buses that are already working and delivering people that are driverless. They're also doing it in the Scandinavian countries, and other countries are doing it. This is going to be commonplace. Cashless cashier societies, automatic AI generators. For those of you who are programming, I had a company in South Africa. We did computational social science, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to do predictive analytics for the banking, insurance, and telco industry. And we developed an automatic AI generator, so the algorithm was created, the data set came in, and then it automatically wrote the next algorithm based upon the information it had. So you're safe as a programmer, right? I'm not so sure. The challenge that we have today is we have a world that's converging artificial intelligence, which includes, we often say artificial intelligence and machine learning. There are 300 disciplines under artificial intelligence. One of them is machine learning. It's a subset. But we have artificial intelligence, sensor tech, 3D printing, robotics, synthetic engineering, which is going to alter the way in which we live. And at Farvest's event, I ended up speaking about what you should do next. I'm not going to go over all of that today, but here on one of the pictures on the side here, we have programming and algorithms are going to be like web pages. You used to have programmers, and now we're just going to move things around. I'm on the advisory board of a company in Hong Kong. We have an agent algorithm platform and marketplace where people could put their algorithms, and then companies could say, I like that algorithm, let me use that. I like that algorithm, let me use that. So we don't have to have people write them, we can use them from someplace else. In Japan, they're using robots to work with elderly to do exercises to keep them healthy. And they can see what's going on. If you don't think you're involved in AI, if you've used Waze or any mapping system, when you have an option to take a second route, that's an algorithm. AI is telling you where to go. And if you've seen drop-down menus, for example, Amazon, that's AI. And if you've bought a book that was suggested by Amazon, your life has been altered by AI already. Now, if you were a computer and looking at the guys in the center, you would probably say to yourself, they're so slow. They have to get on a phone. They have to talk to somebody. That's why data centers are moved so close to stock exchanges. Because the stock exchanges and the algorithms are determining our lives, not the people. And then even in the military. America has, this looks like the old stealth bombers. This is actually a drone. This is a drone that's using artificial intelligence to determine its motions. And some of the new drones have underneath a platform of screens, so that if you look up, it's showing above what's going on, so when you look up, you can't even see it's 100 meters above you, because it's showing the clouds above you. There are some really cool things, scary things that are happening, but cool. AI is producing legal advice. AI is creating logos. It's creating music. And it's a part of our everyday already. What I'm bringing this through is that in Luxembourg, what you might have considered to be safe for tomorrow might not be. Your industries might not be safe if you're not familiar with tomorrow. And we don't spend enough time in tomorrow. Tomorrow is hard. Tomorrow requires integrating information in a way that creates new opportunities. And how much time have you spent in the past month thinking about 5 and 30 years into the future? How much? This is a map of Europe. But let's jump outside first. China will have 420 million people who are elderly in the next 15 to 20 years. 420 million. Why do you think they're going very fast with robotics and artificial intelligence? Because if they have robotics and they can service their constituents, the citizens of the country, they can save and they can create wealth. If we go to Russia, Russia is going to lose 30 million people over the next 15 to 20 years. 30 million. But their value is that they have natural resources. And to move towards, for example, oil, that was a great move for them, except oil might be changing in terms of needs. Europe is going to lose 50 million people. So do this. Add 5 years onto your life right now. That's forecasting. Add 10 years. What will your life be like in 10 years? We're already finding challenges throughout the world finding civil servants to do simple jobs. Can't find them. They're not working. I'm not going to go over this tool, but it's a powerful tool. If you want to start looking at the future and looking at it properly, sit down with your teams, your groups, and say, it's called the Pentality of Forecasting. You look at you, your group, and your organization. You, meaning 5 years, 10 years, what will your kids be like, your parents be like, what will the world be like. But you also be looking at your customers and what they're not sitting still. They're going to change. And your vendors and what they're changing. Look at your competition. They're not sitting around. Those 420 other smart city developments, they're trying to beat Luxembourg. And the last one, I stuck with in the first beginning, I used to use the word world, but I went to universe. And the reason that I went to the universe is, for example, pilots and airlines are worried about solar flares And solar flares cause challenges with travel over the polar caps. So if you want to look to the future, you have to start with the fundamentals so we can understand the decisions that you're making are impacted by this. But here's the good news. Now, if you didn't feel that was all good news. The good news is this. You woke up this morning in a bed and you had a sheet on top of you. When you were a little boy or a girl, you woke up in a bed with a sheet. You went to the toilet and there was water in there, and you didn't get a ray shower. You used water. You went to the kitchen and you turned on flames, and the flames did things to cook your food. We use microwaves that are 50 years old, 60 years old. The expectations of what we thought the future will be like is not anything we thought. And these are pictures. I went to 1900, 1910, 1920, 1930, 1940, 1950, and everybody talked about flying cars. I don't see a flying car. I have not seen one flying car besides in a video. I think they're all pretend. Now, they're happening. But it could be another 40 years or 30 years before we reach the level. So don't be as afraid, but understand and be aware of what's happening. So let's go to the last part, is understanding desired outcome. And this is a challenge. What is the real purpose? There's a guy by the name of Chris Rufer. He's a brilliant guy. He started a company called Morningstar Packaging, and he developed the concept of creating tomato paste. He didn't understand why we created a sauce and then shipped it all the way across to our customer. And then he said, why don't we take out the water and then ship it, and it's less expensive. He created the technology for this, and it changed and revolutionized how all the major companies around the world work. I had a great discussion with him on the phone one day, and I'm at this conference speaking, and he walks up to me at the pool. I'm relaxing, and he says, David, I got a question for you. Humans have needed food, water, shelter, transportation, communication, and entertainment since the beginning of time. What's changed? What has changed? What? Communication. Okay, thank you. Somebody else then? Speed. Somebody else? Climate. Somebody else? Information. Actually, there's one thing that has changed. It's the technology we apply to it. We apply technology to all of those activities to be humans. That's what we do. We want to get our water, we get it in a bottle, we get it delivered to us a certain way. We want to get communications. Well, it's gone from attack to, hey guys, attack. I mean, it's changed. One of the things he didn't touch on is that there's a biosphere out there. And Luxembourg is beautiful. I live in New York when I'm in the States. And I drive through these amazing streets in the back. And this is where I cycle, but it's on the other side of the world, or halfway around the world. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and we have to make sure we nurture that and develop it. I did some interviewing and talking to people. It wasn't a data analytics story to give this presentation, but this is what one of the people said. I'll say it out loud. My take is that people do not come to Luxembourg because of our great weather, the fabulous educational opportunities, the vibrant music scene, the rich cultural opportunities, the world-class libraries. No. They come to Luxembourg for the economic opportunities to better themselves and create a better life for themselves and their families. So you basically come to make money. And having the rest of your life really doesn't count. So here are a few people I spoke to. Emily is a transplant from Hong Kong. She came here, and we were having a conversation. I've known her for a few years, and she said, I can't meet people here. All my friends disappear every weekend. It is so challenging to meet people in this community. It's kind of lonely. She's Belgian. She says it's challenging to live here. Larissa and I had a conversation, and she said to me, the challenge is retention and recruitment for companies. So we're having to use people, for example, which I've heard, from Eastern Europe, and we're paying 6,000 euros for them to do data or programming because they won't stay here. This taxi cab driver that I had while I was here, he said to me, I'm a musician. I've done 1,000 gigs in Italy, and I can't find anybody to play with here. How do you have a culture that doesn't have arts and sciences? And someone like this says, I don't know how long I'm going to stay. Javier went to school. I was a professor at NYU for 12 years, and Javier came here with his wife to work for Amazon. He says, we're here, but we're just existing. Not because of economics. He's a marketing expert, and he says there's no job for marketing experts here. It's really challenging. So he goes to Switzerland every single week on Monday, and he comes back on a Friday night, and he says, I don't see my children grow up. So we'll stay as long as we can because it's great for her. Paul is a different world. He's in a literally different world. Paul has a job where his position allows him to meet people every day. He's an older gentleman. He has different resources and needs. So his perception is different. I came here, and I've been here over the past 3 months, I've been here 3-4 times. I don't even know anymore. And one time I stayed near the Gare. At 8 o'clock, you cannot find a grocery store or a convenience store to buy a bottle of water. You cannot find a cafe that's open to have a cup of tea or coffee. I went to the bus station, and I went around in the bus station, and I needed to get to speak at the space conference, and I asked everybody, how do I buy a ticket for the bus? I didn't know you didn't really need a ticket, but I tried to buy a ticket. Finally, someone at the train station sat down, looked at his plan, and said, you need to take this bus. He helped me. So I got on the bus, and I went up, and I asked the bus driver, this place? I said, so someone else walked over. Like, this guy maybe needs to go to the toilet. I don't know what his issue is. And at one point, I say, I don't know where I'm supposed to get off for this. And the woman next to me starts going through the front. She says, you needed to get off back there about 10 minutes ago. No one helped me. And I didn't have the resources to find my way. I was running late by that point. But the next guy says, hey, I'll take you. It's my day off. I'll bring you back. It'll take me out of my way, but I will. So he walked me all the way over and the best way I could say is where Dockler is. He walked me all the way through. I wouldn't have found it by myself. He then said, I'll take you on the train, and we went all the way down to the center. And while we were talking, he says, I'm 32 years old. I've been here 5 years. I've made good money. I can't meet women. It's very bad for relationships. I work for Polycom. We've got a large unit here. I'm in procurement. But there's no life here for me. And I'll be leaving in probably the next few months. And when I told Marco that, he said, we can't have that. We can't have people who don't have an opportunity to build a life in a community, even though 80% of you are Luxembourgish and people come from outside. That's not how you treat your guests. What people want is a place to live. They want a place to be able to find and do and see and learn and experience. You need to wow them. You need to make it so it's amazing. This is a picture of me. You're laughing. This is a picture of me now. You need to wow people to come to Luxembourg. And unfortunately, the reputation from people I know around the world, and I travel, is you can go to Luxembourg, but there's nothing to do. There are great things to do. There's the Philharmonic, and there's the new stadium that you've put up for concerts. But the reputation, which is stronger than the actual, is out there in the marketplace. So someone decides to go to New York. Wow, New York! They attract talent. They have a lifestyle. They are engaged with multinational and international schools. It's a place, but you're not going to compete against New York. But New York is a hub for people. And then I thought about Hong Kong. Why do people go to Hong Kong? You already know the answer. You know that they go to Hong Kong to be in Asia, to be at the hub of Asia, because they want to go to Thailand and Malaysia and Cambodia. They want to go to Vietnam. They want to go to Japan. They want to go to Korea. They are interested with an amazing transportation system that you can get anywhere to anywhere inside of Hong Kong. And you can get to the airport in 27 minutes from Central, and it's so easy, it's unbelievable. They have one of the world-class airports. You can get a visa very easily. They make it easy because they need the population, so they process it so it's digital and moves fast. And I've got one of these, a Hong Kong residence card. I got sick in Hong Kong. And I'm thinking, okay, let's see how good this is. So I go to the hospital or the clinic place, and I walk up, I show them my card, the lady types in all the information, makes sure that's correct, hands it back to me and says, you can take a seat over there, sir. Oh, what's wrong? You can take a seat over there. They take my blood pressure within less than 3 minutes, and 5 minutes after that, the person walks me about 10 meters away and says, you could sit here. And I'm thinking, okay, here it goes. 5 hours. Within 5 minutes, I was in front of a doctor. The doctor went through his diagnosis, they made a call, and he said, you can go outside, and within 5 minutes from there, someone came and said, I'm going to be taking x-rays of you. He walked me all the way to the x-rays, took the x-rays, walked me all the way back, sat me down, and said, it'll be a few minutes. And within no more than 10 minutes, I was back talking to the doctor. The doctor said to me, you have a little bit you probably got sick and didn't get rid of something in your lungs. You need some drugs. They wrote some script. Someone walked me to the pharmacy. I got my drugs. And by the time I was done, an hour, maybe 15 minutes later, I paid $120 US, and I was out the door. The United States, honestly, that would have been 3 weeks. And I'm not trying to pick on America. That would have been 3 weeks. My wife was, oh my God, how does it happen? But in Hong Kong, they service the expats. They make it easy for us to live. It's not about digitalization. It's about making the tools available for their employees, for the staff, so that we can get the services we need, and it all came on this one little card. We have an expat community. We all know each other. We can run into the same person 6 or 7 times in a week, and they all know it's transient. Hey, how long are you going to be here? 2-year contract, 4-year contract. People don't go to Hong Kong to live. I've been there 9 years now. Sometimes you kind of get stuck there. But most people know they're on a contract. It's a transient community. It's access to Asia, and 75% of the land is protected. So they have wonderful hiking trips and places that you can go without a local. And their international schools, if you come, are amazing. For French, for English, there are many different schools to fulfill the needs of the expats. So Lang Kwai Fong, if you've been to Hong Kong, is the place where you party. The metro system is amazing. You don't need a map. You don't need a plan. Every metro station gets service within approximately 5 minutes. You just show up in 5 minutes, 3 minutes. It shows the sign, 3 minutes, and you go. New York City, I know I have to wait for half hour, 20 minutes. There's people partying and having fun. At the end of a workday, you can go to Lang Kwai Fong and you can meet tons of expats. They've made it as a central community so you can dance all night, you can have fun, but you'd also win. There's rolling hills. This is Stanley in the center on the bottom, where families spend a lot of their time, so you can have families grouped together, and the airport is beyond imagination. I can be in Thailand in 2.5 hours. I can be in Vietnam in 2 hours. I'm going to Bali after this. I go to Hong Kong for a day. I then go to Bali to speak. And in Bali, I'll be there in about 4 hours. I can go to Japan in 4.5 hours. Unbelievable. I can travel through Asia, and they make it easy for you to leave. So I'm going to give you some solutions. And let me make this, let's say I'm going to give you a scenario. And I'd like you to have a different perspective than most people have. I've done a lot of startup competitions, and I've been the head judge, and I sit down with everybody and I said, it's easy to destroy someone who spent the past 3 weeks trying to build a presentation. We can easily rip everybody apart, but there's one rule. If you rip someone apart, you better have an answer. And I will ask you for that answer if you don't give it. So don't open your mouth if you don't have an answer. It's surprising how many people stop talking. Because it's tough to come up with answers that are valuable to those people. So I'm going to show you a scenario, not the scenario, a scenario. It's not written in stone. So don't come at it and say, David's wrong. Say, David's trying to help. I'm just trying to help. So let me give you a short little 1 minute.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
The point is you might not see some of the things that I see, so don't judge completely until you've had some time to explore and at least digest. Luxembourg can be the Hong Kong and New York of the world in Europe. It is set for that. It is built and designed to be redefining life in Europe. Let someone come here and then go away on a weekend. Let somebody play. I'm a martial artist. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. Sometimes you block, sometimes you move with the flow, sometimes you play. Well, here, let's take all the things that people like to do or do and make it an attribute of Luxembourg. For example, they want to stay for 5 years? Stay for 5 years. Come, be with us for 5. You want to make money here? We can help you with that. You want to travel throughout Europe? We're going to make it easy for you to get to the airport. We're going to make it easy for you to get your tickets. We're going to make it easy for you to travel. You want a visa? We're going to help you get that. We're going to do it quickly. We're going to change the commuting scenario. We're going to solve the challenges with driverless cars, with bulk pooling scenarios. We're going to create a work lifestyle that makes it work, but we're going to help you find a home. We're going to give you family education that works for you. We're going to get you the expat connections. We're going to have a startup and a business mentality that helps businesses and organizations grow, and we're going to take care of your health while we're at it. And by the way, all of this will generate taxes for the people who are from Luxembourg, so that they and you, whoever you are, can have a life and a future, because the people will want to come here. You're positioned to be redefining life in Europe. It's not London. London, you go, you stay, you live your life, you go through London, you travel a little bit, but Luxembourg could be the weekend travel point. Just like Hong Kong, people go, hey, I'm going to Thailand this weekend, I'm going to Vietnam this weekend, I'm going to Korea. That happens all the time. And we're like, oh yeah, that's cool. So why don't we just change it a little bit? Hey, come, be our guest. We'll take care of you. Now what does this do? What does this do for digitalization? I tried to help you out. Think about that. It's the laser beam to the moon. You don't have the resources to digitalize everything, but you have the resources to take advantage of the situation and the proximity and the location and the opportunities that live right in your back door. Let people from the United States say, I want to come here and live here for my 2 years. And I want to work here because the businesses are here. Let them come from South America. Let them come from Africa. Let them come from Asia and say, let's go to Luxembourg. And you can see it. I know every one of you can see it right now. This becomes the heart of Europe. But you have to digitize and make it comfortable for them. What's the value for the business and the other side of the community? For the government? Businesses, talent acquisition, retention and recruitment, capital and fundraising, opportunities, symbiotic relationship with the government. If we were to go to governance, this gives us an opportunity to give direction for leadership, a tax base that comes out of it. It's going to give you preparation for the aging population that is happening in Luxembourg, a unique position, and it's not just smart city, it's a new city. It is the lifeblood of Europe. It prioritizes your digitalization. It can immediately get returns. You have an educational system that teaches English, that's strong, and a healthcare system, you'll have people come here. You find where, and get expats to get a community to go to so they don't feel alone, you'll get them coming here, and you'll get talent. It'll generate pay raises and opportunity. So I didn't go over what Marco had said in the one column of all the people, besides that he didn't like that person was leaving, and here's what's amazing with Marco. Marco and I have had tons of conversations about this. So this is kind of a morphing from our conversation, and it was this. You have choices and a door to pass through. And he actually, when he thinks about digitalization, he really is talking about optimization. But he wasn't clear, and no one's been clear, of what your desired outcome, that bigger picture, the bookstore example, are you trying to solve? You're trying to create a life for people who come here so that they stay, live, work, and maybe leave. And you're happy with that. How fast could this happen? Some of you have seen this picture already. This is New York City in 1900 on the left. And there's a horse in the picture, it's circled. I mean, a car in the picture. First car, and that picture. The next picture is a photograph of in 13 years. And there is a horse, and it's right up here. The third car up, it's in there. There's a horse. In 13 years, the entire place transformed. Luxembourg can do this tomorrow. because you're already doing it. You're just not leveraging it. Good methodologies, good approaches, good slogans. Redefining life in Europe, to me, is one that's really strong because it does a few things. And one of them is I use this phrase I created called aimed. A good presentation, a good methodology, a good strategy is aimed. It's aspirational, inspirational, motivational, educational, and directional. It gives people focus on where they need to spend their energy. And this is aimed. It narrows down the focus so you can deliver and create a community. For a leader, you have to now change something, the pursuit of rapid adoption. How do you do that? Leaders have to be in charge and lead the charge. They have to create new products and services that fit these dynamics. Sure, continue with the digitization and creating of the data centers. Sure, continuing dropping, but those all keep you competitive. All of that keeps you competitive to 400 and some odd smart cities, and there will be more out there. Continue to compete. But don't you want to win? I have a saying since I've been 12 years old, I'm not competitive as long as I win. Now think about that for a minute. I'm not competitive as long as I win. But if I'm playing basketball with my 24-year-old son or my 26-year-old son, winning could be them winning. It's not about me personally winning, it's winning as who I am, as a person, and sometimes winning is other people winning. They have to create new products and services, forecast and be better at forecasting, establish alliances around the globe to make sure that you have the indoctrination and the bringing together. You have to empower people properly. I'm not going to go into it. I got a whole chapter on here that changes the way you look at it. And you got to sell this continually. And everybody in the room has to sell it to the entire community, because the community has to be involved and understand this is not the narrative. This is the description to get you to be thinking differently. There's a big difference. The narrative has to be written so that people will understand it and get it quickly, whether you're Luxembourgish, whether you are on a farm, whether you're in a data center, or whether you're in a restaurant. It doesn't make a difference. It has to have the right storyline. Before I end, are there any questions? I took you on a whirlwind. Are there any questions?
Good evening. Thank you very much for this presentation. I have to admit I am a newcomer on this topic, so I might have a very basic question.
Sure.
But you spoke about the output. That was the most important thing, as I understood it at least. It's, you have to know what you want to reach with digitalization. On the other side, you say you should not digitalize too much. You should just do the right thing, the one that is required. And when I take your example of that soccer football article that was better written by a machine than by a human, then my question is to you, where is the limit?
How much time do you have? No. Throughout history, there's been doom and gloom that have been always sold. It is a great place to go. Artificial intelligence is about, the fear is that we have sapient consciousness within AI. That's a far way off. Anybody who's a real AI expert will tell you, we're no closer to having intelligent, smart, sapient artificial intelligence than we were 40 years ago. Love, hate, malice, all of those things are not built in yet. We don't know how to do that. When ML, machine learning, is our biggest challenge, and that's going to come about with a lot of the programming that we're seeing. There are places that humans are going to find their home. We thought, and I'm 55 years old, we thought there would be paperless offices. Look around. We thought that there would be flying cars. Look around. We thought that a lot of things were going to happen. And the challenge is that we're not solving the biggest challenges on Earth. My take is this, and I've been working on Project Moon Hut Foundation for 5 years for a purpose, because I believe that we're all trying to solve a lot of our challenges, those 6 that I outlined. We're trying to solve them all independently. And we're not solving the challenges of our oceans. We're putting more chemicals and pieces into the ocean than we have. We have mass extinction. Bosnia or Botswana just allowed elephants to be hunted once again. And Australia just had 3 large species go extinct. We lose 12 to 24 almost every single day. We're trying to solve everything at once, everything separately. I believe the challenges that we're facing today require a whole new paradigm way of thinking. And that requires, just like an Indiana Jones or I think Homer or Iliad, these people who go on quests and they find 7 things before they put it together and they put it together, junk, 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 then the gears start going and everything starts to be solved. My take, and this is my own perception, is that space will not usher in, done right, will not usher in the 4th industrial revolution. That's not what's going to happen. We're going to usher in the age of infinite possibilities, infinite resources. And as we live in a world of abundance and scarcity. So we need scarcity to have abundance, and we need abundance to have scarcity. And the challenge is, people are scared of where they're going to fit in that paradigm. Space, and I don't have time to go over it, because I'm not a space person at all. NASA's kind of confused. How do I work on something for 5 years and I'm not a space person? But I believe that we can change how we live on Earth by opening up a space where we live between Moon and Earth, which I call Mirth, Moon and Earth, we're symbiotic with it, and we open up infinite possibilities, which open up people's minds to new possibilities. So the fear of tomorrow and the challenges of, for example, creating videos are small and insignificant to the value of life that we can have to love somebody and care about somebody, become friends with somebody, and live a life that's rich and full. That's the challenge we have to face. And there are new solutions out there. We just have to be looking at them. Kind of like the dancing bear. You have to find them. That said, Mr. Park is an absolutely phenomenal man. He is a Korean friend of mine. He started a company in Bangladesh. Actually, this guy, about 25 years ago, decided he was going to start a company making tents, T-E-N-T-S, for people to sleep in. And he traveled all throughout Asia to find a place to live, to set up his factories. And he went to the Philippines, and he went to Malaysia, and he went to Vietnam, and he settled on this Bangladesh. Now, when he went there, there were no other companies, there were no roads, there was no electricity. It was horrible there. And he said, when I was driving through the streets, I said, oh my God, these people, if I could build a business here, I can change an entire society's way of living. And I can give people hope, but I also can make a fortune because it's going to be cheap. So Mr. Park called his kids and his family, and he said, I'm going to build it in Bangladesh. And he built they thought it was crazy, and he built it in Bangladesh, and a week later he was in Washington, D.C., watching the news about a hurricane or some type of flooding that came, and he watched his own building get wiped out of Bangladesh. And he built it again. Today he has about 20,000 employees. One day, after I met him, we were driving in the car, and he's talking about the lives that he's worked on and the things that he's done, and it was an amazing story. I mean, my heart was just wrenched with the things that he's done, about how amazing this guy is. And at one point, he turns around to me sideways in the car, and he says, I did the right thing, right? And I'm thinking, you did the right thing? And I looked at him, I said, you've been giving families the opportunity. I build these factories. They're beautiful. There's no bars on the windows. They take care of their employees. You have fed generations of families for years. You have changed the lives and given people opportunity that they never have. And in Bangladesh, the CEP zone, which they get the discount, the advantages, those employees earn more than almost anywhere in Bangladesh, about $890 a year for their earnings. He's changed the lives of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And I said to him, you did an absolutely amazing thing. And any of you who slept in a tent, 70% of the world's tents are made in his factory. You've probably been touched by Mr. Park. My point is, you have the opportunity today to make a change and impact the lives of millions of people. You have the opportunity today, if you make the right choices, to make a place for the future of Luxembourg, but also for the future of Europe, to continue to make it a thriving place to live, to be, and explore. You can usher in the age of infinite for Europe. That said, thank you.